You think you can just sit here? People like you don't belong." The words cut through the air like a knife. She froze, her hand gripping the edge of the table, heart pounding as the man leaned closer, his voice low, venomous. Around them, the room went silent, eyes turned, but no one spoke. She wanted to believe she misheard, but then he slipped something beneath the table, smirking as though daring her to notice. She pretended to close her eyes, every nerve on fire. That's when she heard him whisper his cruel plan. But what would she do next? Her name was Maya. She was 22, the kind of person who carried warmth with her everywhere she went. At the small cafe where she worked evenings, regulars came not just for coffee, but for her easy smile, the way she remembered their names, their favorite drinks, their stories. To most people, Maya seemed untouchable by darkness, resilient, grounded, hopeful. But beneath her calm presence was a young woman all too familiar with being treated differently. She had learned to brush it off, strangers clutching their bags tighter when she walked by, professors doubting her work until proven otherwise, the lingering stares when she entered certain spaces. Each time she told herself, "Don't give them your power." This night, though, felt different from the start. The cafe was nearly empty, the low hum of the espresso machine filling the silence. A few scattered customers sat hunched over laptops, the occasional clink of ceramic cups breaking the stillness. Maya wiped down tables, humming softly to herself when the door creaked open. Two men walked in. Their laughter was loud, careless, echoing against the quiet. Something in the way they moved, the way their eyes lingered on her, made Maya's chest tighten. She forced a polite smile and asked what they'd like. But when one of them leaned across the counter, his grin just a little too sharp, she felt it, that familiar unease, the warning that tonight would not end like any other shift. Maya set their drinks on the counter, forcing her hands not to tremble. The taller man winked, sliding a bill across the counter with exaggerated slowness. The other chuckled under his breath, murmuring something Maya couldn't quite catch, but she knew it was about her. She had heard that tone too many times before. They chose a table in the far corner, the kind where shadows swallowed half the light. Their laughter didn't fade. It grew louder, bolder, filling the empty cafe with a grating energy that made every customer glance up, uneasy. Maya kept working, but her ears stayed alert. A word slipped out here, a phrase there. She caught pieces of sentences like fragments of glass, sharp, dangerous. "She thinks she's safe here. They always act so polite, but you know what they're like. Should have learned her place a long time ago." Her chest tightened. She wiped the counter slower, buying herself time to listen. One of the men shifted, his chair scraping the floor. Then she saw it, a small packet sliding from his hand, dropped beneath the table. Her stomach flipped. Was it what she thought? She forced her face to stay neutral, but her thoughts raced. "Stay calm, don't react." The men leaned closer to each other, whispering now. Maya turned her back, pretending to refill a sugar jar. "Wait till she drinks it," one muttered. "She won't even know what happened," the other replied, a smirk in his voice. Her blood ran cold. Every instinct screamed at her to confront them, to shout, to call for help. But the cafe felt suffocatingly silent. The other customers were too buried in their laptops, too far away to notice. And what if she was wrong? What if confronting them made everything worse? She forced herself to breathe, slowly, quietly, her hands tightening on the jar until her knuckles whitened. Then she made a decision. She walked past their table, head down, as though on her way to the kitchen. Her heart thudded so loudly she was certain they could hear it. As she passed, she caught their words again, clear this time. "Once she's out, we'll teach her what happens when people like her forget their place." Her steps faltered, but she didn't stop. She slipped into the back hallway, leaning against the wall, her chest heaving. Her ears burned with the weight of their words. She had heard cruelty before, endured stares and whispers, but this was different. This was a plan. The sound of chairs scraping jolted her back to reality. They were moving. She had only seconds to decide. Stay hidden and pray someone else intervened, or walk back out there and face them before it was too late. Her hand hovered over her phone in her pocket, call for help, but what if they noticed? What if they realized she had heard? Maya swallowed hard. Whatever happened next, she knew one thing: tonight would test not just her courage, but her survival. Maya stepped back into the cafe, her pulse rattling in her ears. The two men had gone quiet, their eyes tracking her every move. One of them nudged the untouched cup across the table, his grin stretching wider. "What's wrong? Don't trust us?" His voice dripped with mockery. "Come on, sweetheart, just a sip, don't be rude." Her throat tightened. She could smell the bitterness of the coffee, but the thought of what was hidden inside it made bile rise in her chest. Her hands trembled, but she didn't move closer. That's when the taller one leaned in, his voice low, sharp enough to cut. "Girls like you should know their place. You think you belong here, serving people like us? Nah, tonight you'll learn." The words hit harder than a slap. It wasn't just the drink, not just the smirk. It was the venom of centuries packed into a single sentence. Her heart screamed to run, but her feet held her ground. Maya's mind raced. If she froze, she was powerless. If she fought, she was alone. And then, a sound, another customer shifting in their seat, eyes flicking toward the men. For the first time all night, someone else was watching. The shorter man noticed too. His smirk faltered. "We're just kidding," he said quickly, his tone changing, but the darkness in his eyes told another story. Maya locked eyes with him, steady now, her fear hardening into something sharper. She didn't drink. She didn't bow her head. She let silence do the work. And in that silence, the weight of their cruelty was laid bare, not just to her, but to everyone in that cafe. Because sometimes the loudest stand is made without saying a single word. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. The men shifted in their seats, their confidence cracking under the weight of watching eyes. Maya didn't move, didn't flinch. She simply stood tall, her gaze unwavering. And in that moment, the power they thought they held slipped from their hands. One of the other customers rose quietly and walked toward the counter. His voice was calm but firm. "I heard everything, you need to leave." The words cut through the air like a verdict. The men laughed nervously, muttering excuses, but the room had turned against them. One by one, people lifted their heads, their silence no longer compliance, but solidarity. The men left that night, their footsteps hurried, their smirks gone. Maya exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours, her knees weak but her spirit unbroken. She hadn't screamed, she hadn't fought with fists, but she had survived. And in surviving, she had exposed something uglier than any single act of malice. Because the truth is, racism rarely hides in shadows. It sits in plain sight, in smirks, in whispers, in the audacity of those who think power protects them. But courage, even quiet courage, has a way of unraveling that illusion. Maya's story isn't just hers. It echoes in classrooms, in workplaces, in cafes across the world, where silence can be complicity or it can be resistance. So I'll leave you with this. When you hear cruelty dressed as a joke, when you see someone targeted because of who they are, will you look away? Or will you let your silence speak on the side of justice? Because sometimes the smallest stand can spark the loudest change.